probed only the planets closest to us with unmanned craft. Beyond our relatively close neighbors, both interplanetary and outer space are still outside the reach of even small scanning craft. But the Nephilim's own planet, with its vast orbit, has served as a traveling observatory, taking them through the orbits of all the outer planets and enabling them to observe at first hand most of the solar system. No wonder, then, that when they landed on Earth, a good deal of the knowledge they brought with them concerned astronomy and celestial mathematics. The Nephilim, gods of heaven upon earth, taught man to look up unto the heavens, just as Yahweh urged Abraham to do. No wonder, too, that even the earliest and crudest sculptures and drawings bore celestial symbols of constellations and planets, and that when the gods were to be represented or invoked, their celestial symbols were used as a graphic shorthand. By invoking the celestial divine symbols, man was no longer alone. The symbols connected earthlings with the Nephilim, earth with heaven, mankind with the universe. Some of the symbols, we believe, also convey information that could be related only to space travel to Earth. Ancient sources provide a profusion of texts and lists dealing with the celestial bodies and their associations with the various deities. The ancient habit of assigning several epithet names to both the celestial bodies and the deities has made identification difficult. Even in the case of established identifications, such as Venus/Ishtar, the picture is confused by the changes in the pantheon. Thus, in earlier times Venus was associated with Ninhursag. Somewhat greater clarity has been obtained by scholars, such as E.B. Van Buren, symbols of the gods in Mesopotamian art, who assembled and sorted out the more than 80 symbols of gods and celestial bodies that can be found on cylinder seals, sculptures, stelae, reliefs, murals, and in great detail and clarity on boundary stones Kuder in Akkadian. When the classification of the symbols is made, it becomes evident that apart from standing for some of the better-known southern or northern constellations such as the Sea Serpent for the constellation Hydra, they represented either the 12 constellations of the zodiac, for example, the Crab for Scorpio, or the 12 gods of heaven and earth, or the 12 members of the solar system. The Kuder set up by Melishibak, king of Susa, shows the 12 symbols of the zodiac and the symbols of the 12 astral gods. A stele erected by the Assyrian king Esarhaddon shows the ruler holding the cup of life, while facing the 12 chief gods of heaven and earth. We see 4 gods atop animals, of whom Ishtar, on the land and Adad holding the forked lightning can definitely be identified. 4 other gods are represented by the tools of their special attributes, as the war god Namurda by his lion-headed mace. The remaining 4 gods are shown as celestial bodies: the sun Shamash, the winged globe, the 12th planet, the abode of Anu, the moon's crescent, and the symbol consisting of 7 dots. Although in later times the god Sin was associated with the moon, identified by the crescent, ample evidence shows that in olden times the crescent was the symbol of an elderly and bearded deity, one of Sumer's true olden gods. Often shown surrounded by streams of water, this god was undoubtedly Ea. The crescent was also associated with the science of measuring and calculating, of which Ea was the divine master. It was appropriate that the god of the seas and oceans, Ea, be assigned as his celestial counterpart the moon, which causes the ocean's tides. What was the meaning of the symbol of the 7 dots? Many clues lead no doubt that it was the celestial symbol of Enlil. The depiction of the gateway of Anu, the winged globe flanked by Ea and Enlil, represents them by the crescent and the 7-dot symbol. Some of the clearest depictions of the celestial symbols that were meticulously copied by Sir Henry Rawlins and the cuneiform inscriptions of Western Asia assign the most prominent position to a group of 3 symbols standing for Anu flanked by his 2 sons. These show that the symbol for Enlil could be either the 7 dots or a 7-pointed star. The essential element in Enlil's celestial representation was the number 7. The daughter, Ninhursag, was sometimes included, represented by the umbilical cutter. Scholars have been unable to understand the statement by Gudea, king of Lagash, that the celestial 7 is 50. Attempts at arithmetic solutions, some formula whereby the number 7 would go into 50, failed to reveal the meaning of the statement. However, we see a simple answer. Gudea stated that the celestial body, that is 7, stands for the god, that is 50. The god Enlil, whose rank number was 50, had as his celestial counterpart the planet, that was 7. Which planet was the planet of Enlil? We recall the texts that speak of the early times, when the gods first came to Earth, when Anu stayed on the 12th planet, and his 2 sons, who had gone down to Earth, drew lots. Ea was given the rulership over the deep, and to Enlil the earth was given for his dominion. And the answer to the puzzle bursts out in all its significance. The planet of Enlil was Earth. Earth, to the Nephilim, was the 7th planet. In February 1971, the United States launched an unmanned spacecraft on the longest mission to date. For 21 months it traveled past Mars and the asteroid belt to a precisely scheduled rendezvous with Jupiter. Then, as anticipated by NASA scientists, the immense gravitational pull of Jupiter grabbed the spacecraft and hurled it into outer space. Speculating that Pioneer 10 might someday be attracted by the gravitational pull of another solar system and crash land on some planet elsewhere in the universe, the Pioneer 10 scientists attached to it an engraved aluminum plaque bearing the accompanying message. The message employs a pictographic language, signs, and symbols not too different from those used in the very first pictographic writing of Sumer. It attempts to tell whoever might find the plaque that mankind is male and female, of a size related to the size and shape of the spacecraft. It depicts the 2 basic chemical elements of our world, and our location relative to a certain interstellar source of radio emissions. And it depicts our solar system as a sun and 9 planets, telling the finder the craft that you have found comes from the 3rd planet of this sun. Our astronomy is geared to the notion that Earth is the 3rd planet, which indeed it is if one begins the count from the center 6 of our system, the Sunday. But to someone viewing our solar system from the outside, the 1st planet to be encountered would be Pluto, the 2nd Neptune, the 3rd Uranus, not Earth. 4th would be Saturn, 5th, Jupiter, 6th, Mars, and Earth would be 7th. No one but the Nephilim, traveling to Earth past Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, could have considered Earth the 7th. Even if, for the sake of argument, one assumed that the inhabitants of ancient Mesopotamia, rather than travelers from space, had the knowledge or wisdom to count Earth's position not from the central sun, but from the solar system's edge, then it would follow that the ancient peoples knew of the existence of Pluto and Neptune and Uranus. Since they could not have known of these outermost planets on their own, the information must, we conclude, have been imparted to them by the Nephilim. Whichever assumption is adopted as a starting point, the conclusion is the same. Only the Nephilim could have known that there are planets beyond Saturn, as a consequence of which Earth, counting from the outside, is the 7th. Earth is not the only planet whose numerical position in the solar system was represented symbolically. Ample evidence shows that Venus was depicted as an 8-pointed star. Venus is the 8th planet, following Earth, when counted from the outside. The 8-pointed star also stood for the goddess Ishtar, whose planet was Venus. Many cylinder seals and other graphic relics depict Mars as the 6th planet. A cylinder seal shows the god associated with Mars, originally Nergal, then Nabu, seated on a throne, under a 6-pointed star, as his symbol. Other symbols on the seal show the sun, much in the same manner we would depict it today, the moon, and the cross, symbol of the planet of crossing, the 12th planet. In Assyrian times, the celestial count of the god's planet was often indicated by the appropriate number of star symbols placed alongside the god's throne. Thus, a plaque depicting the god Nibiru placed 4 star symbols at his throne. His planet Saturn is indeed the 4th planet, as counted by the Nephilim. Similar depictions have been found for most of the other planets. The central religious event of ancient Mesopotamia, the 12-day New Year festival, was replete with symbolism that had to do with the orbit of the 12th planet, the makeup of the solar system, and the journey of the Nephilim to Earth. The best documented of these affirmations of the faith were the Babylonian New Year rituals, but evidence shows that the Babylonians only copied traditions going back to the beginning of Sumerian civilization. In Babylon, the festival followed a very strict and detailed ritual. Each portion, act, and prayer had a traditional reason and a specific meaning. The ceremony started on the first day of Nisan, then the first month of the year.